Today's lesson is adding and subtracting fractions. Our goal is that we can add and subtract fractions with common and uncommon denominators. As always, please note to pause if I go too fast, which I promise I will, and rewind if you need to hear something again. We are adding and subtracting fractions with common denominators. To add and subtract fractions with common denominators, write the sum or difference of the numerator over the common denominator. Okay, so we're going to, because we've got the common denominator, we're just going to subtract our numerators. So 4 minus 3 is 1, so we've got 1/9. 1/5 plus 2/5 equals 3/5. On our own, we're going to simplify if we can. We've got 1/10 plus 3/10. You hopefully get 4/10. And hopefully you can see when you look at that both of those are divisible by 2, which if we divide 4 by 2, we get 2. If we divide 10 by 2, we get 5, giving us 2/5. Here we're going to subtract 15/16 and 7/16. When we subtract that, we get 8/16. 8 is half of 16, which gives us 1/2 as our simplified fraction. All right, moving on to adding and subtracting with different denominators. First, we have to find the least common denominator of the two fractions. It's the least common multiple of the denominators. So when we look at the 4 and the 5, hopefully you see that the 4 and the 5 have a common denominator of 20. So what did I do to the 4 to get to 20? I multiplied it by 5. So I do 3 times 5 and get 15. What did I do to the 5 to get to 20? I multiplied it by 4. So 3 times 4 gives me 12. 15 times 12, sorry, I said 15 times, I meant 15 plus, and that gives me 27 over 20, which would give me 1 7/20. Okay, so now I add or subtract, sorry, I went kind of fast, I didn't read through my stuff, but I add or subtract the rewritten fraction, and I simplify and give it to you. Questions? If you have them, make sure you write them and bring them to me in class. All right, now, on your own. Okay, so you've got 5/6 plus 1/10. 6 and 10, common denominator, least common denominator, would be 30. If you don't see that, you could always multiply them and get 60. However, least common gives you less work. So, I get that. What I do to 6 to get to 30, I multiply it by 5. 5 times 5 gives me 25. What I do to 10 to get to 30, I multiplied it by 3. 1 times 3 gives me 3. 25 plus 3 gives me 28 over 30. Both of those have I have a factor of 2. So now I simplify it by dividing them both by 2. So I get 14 over 15. All right. 3/5 plus 1/2. I have a factor, a least common denominator of 10. So now 5 times 2 got me to 10. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. 2 times 5 gets me 10. So 1 times 5 gives me 5. I get 11 over 10. And quite honestly, you weren't told that you had to make it a mixed number. I personally am okay with you leaving it as 11 over 10. unless I tell you otherwise. And since I didn't tell you you couldn't leave it that way, I'd be okay with this one, or you could put it as this. If this was a test or a quiz, I would give you very specific instructions as to how I want it, or I would accept either one. All right, 7/8 and minus 2/3. So 8 and 3 has a least common multiple of 24. 8 times 3 got me 24, so 7 times 3 gives me 21. 3 times 8 gives me 24, so 2 times 3 gives me, 2 times 8 gives me 16. I subtract, I get 5/24, and I am finished. 3/4 minus 1/12. My common denominator is going to be 12. And 1/12 will stay the same. 4 times 3 gives me 12. So 3 times 3 will give me 9 for a common fraction, or equal fraction, equivalent fraction. 9/12 minus 1/12 gives me 8/12. You were told to always simplify on the second slide. So 8 divided by 8 and 12, all 8 and 12, 8/12. Those have a common factor of 4. So if I divide both of those by 4, I get 2/3. And there we go. If you have any questions, please let me know, write them down, share them with me next time you come to class. I hope you enjoyed our lesson, and I will see you next time.